Logan how to do that.
Yeah, that's where I totally have all of my legitimate copies of audiobooks and stuff that I've been using for the last couple of years. So
Nice,
in my
perfect.
offsite storage. So does alluding to that, is that on the bannable offense?
I don't
Because
think
like I
so.
was hoping for something a little softer leading in, but I figured just go right to like, there's 3 strikes, you're out. Killed our YouTube channel right there. Boom.
Well, what I think is good is that before it actually said live, the word trigger happened. It's like maybe that would be bad. I don't know. Is that too much like a dungeon to talk about the word trigger? I think we're
Yeah.
good now. We're out of the danger zone.
Look, guys, Trigger's been around since at least they had catapults, like and crossbows and shit. But like, if you're gonna make it about firearms, fine. Like, like don't talk about your old primitive tool traps and stuff with their triggers, because you might trigger somebody talking about triggers. So okay,
Yep.
now we're canceled. Let's record a show.
I hated this. I'm going to rip the Band-Aid off. This season sucked.
You hated season 6?
Yeah.
I'm done with you. Just
I don't know what to
literally
say.
that's what you're gonna go in with. How could you hate it? Like, I hate that it's over. But how could you hate it?
Okay. It felt both too long and too short because they didn't fucking do anything that mattered. I felt like they were wasting time. They had 6 episodes, and I wondered, are they going to be able to fit in everything that they needed? And apparently, I was bored. Only like 10 minutes of anything that actually mattered per episode.
What do you mean actually mattered?
Did you read the book?
No.
Are you familiar with where the story's going?
I know that there's a time jump.
Do you understand that this is the midpoint of a story?
Then maybe they should have done different things. I did not enjoy watching this.
Maybe they were true to the source material. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of like the similar kinds of things where it didn't feel wrapped up because you're on episode 5 out of 6 and they're like, oh man, we are going to do world peace. Well, solar system peace. We're going to do peace and we're going to give it a chance. And then we're going to go fight a war. And it's like, you're going to fight a war in an episode. Not to mention the fact that we didn't get that much detail on like the dogs and that sort of thing. But I think that's because it like the point of the Expanse, in my opinion, is like it's not Star Trek, right? It's not Star Wars. You're not telling a contained story per se. It's a history. It's a snapshot of history, right? So that's like watching a World War II documentary and being pissed off that they ended at the Battle of Midway or something like that, right? It's like, yes, there is more to it. Go watch a different part of the documentary or a different documentary.
This one was not fun.
This
was not fun about it.
This was the conclusion to the story and like the story we started in season 1, right? It's the conclusion to the story in this solar system, kind of like the war, the social unrest, all that kind of gets somewhat concluded. The bigger world building pieces does not.
Yeah, no, there wasn't much of a conclusion. It just like, and we're not recording anymore. That's it.
But it's humanity. That is exactly roughly how it would go. It's always like round and round it goes.
If anything, that's they obviously. They definitively ended some of the story that started in like season 3 with Inaros. There's obviously other pieces that are in play there because the show only barely starts hinting at some of the stuff going on behind the scenes because it doesn't really kick off until the time skip, right? With the whole thing with Admiral Duarte.
Something like maybe they should have done a fuller season and did the time skip in the middle. Or something.
A fuller season compared to what? Which season had more than 6 episodes?
If they had done 10 episodes and then they just said, and then 40 years later or whatever the fucking time skip is, and actually continued the story to something that mattered, show me how anything that I sat through was important enough because I didn't care about any of it. I no longer care about these characters.
I think that's short-sighted. So a lot of people keep saying that the show is dead, but
knowing that there is a time skip and like it's not going to be the Rothmati people or whatever, I don't know.
Sure, it is. That's what I'm saying. You're not familiar with the story.
Sure, but it's not going to be Holden or whatever. It's not going to be them.
Yes,
right?
it is.
It is? Okay.
Yes. It's for whatever reason they skip it 40 years in the future, and we go back to the geriatric Rocinante, and they straight up at least the first book or two, like after the time skip. Like I think there's 3 books after the time skip. I'm not an expert, but I've at least read some of the Wikipedia. I've read some of the stuff on Reddit and that sort of thing. But they do go back to like a really old Rocinante crew. So I'm not sure if like they age differently in because of their pseudo medical science and stuff. But
an Earther's lifespan was about 120. They mentioned that in season 1, but they are battered. They've been in lots of space battles, lots of injuries. They're somewhere between 30 and 40-ish, all of them.
Seems like it,
if not older. 40 years later,
they're all going to be like like their
60s, 70s or something, isn't it?
Right,
80s.
Well, holy brain,
they're like in their 30s, aren't they? I would say they're
depending.
Yeah, but still, that's
going to put them
Naomi has an adult son. So. How old could she have been? I mean, there isn't a lower bound on how old she can be.
She has a son who's like somewhere between, I would say, 17 and 23.
Yeah, yes, so like, but a minimum
17 and 23 when she birthed him, so she's
right. So 40-ish. A minimum, she's like 35, like absolute minimum. Like I guess 30 could be the absolute minimum if she was 15 and he's 15, but probably not. So. Really? Okay, so you didn't like any of the action. You don't like the Rocinante basically taking on 3 ships by itself. You didn't like the fact that Avasarala actually had to lead instead of just yell at people the whole time. Did you get a chance to watch any of the vignettes? It's not going to fix your problem, but I'm just curious.
No. I saw that you posted it. Like, I'm not doing extra bullshit work to
30 minutes of watching like
that. I wouldn't be able to even watch in a full sit down stream or anything, because it'd have to be watching the individual episode. They had a hidden menu to get 5 minutes of characters that I no longer care about.
You don't have to go to like each episode. It's just I know it was a stupid
I'd already
decision,
checked out at that point. I had finished everything. I was already angry. I'm no longer interested. Like I felt like.
So what are we supposed to talk about? Am I supposed to tell you that you're wrong, or am I just going to listen to you blast a show that I loved the entire time? Because what are we actually supposed to talk about here? Because like the Strange Dogs episode 1, not amazing, but it sets up very handily what's in episode 2.
I hated that stupid fucking Pet Cemetery thing that they did nothing with. I hated it.
Go read the books, director. Like, seriously, I can't tell you anything other than you don't know what you're talking about until you go familiarize yourself with the rest of the story, because you've only read the first 2/3 of a story and you're pissed off that you didn't get the ending because it's still out there. It's still being written.
The first 3 seasons of the show, it didn't give me an ending, but I enjoyed watching them. Sci-Fi handled the show better than Amazon did.
So what's different now? No, and that's garbage.
Amazon handled it better than
no, it is, because like the space battles in the early seasons, they mattered. We had 6 episodes, so they do all of the battles in 1 episode, and it took 3 minutes of nothing and a bunch of flying lights and stuff. Versus the physics felt like they mattered in the early seasons, and now they don't.
Like. Oh, right. Okay. So, when they gracefully got Alex's character off screen because the physics mattered, that doesn't count. I feel like you're cherry picking information, which is usually the problem that I have with people that rag on shit that I like. They made the fact that they talked about stroking out in like the first couple of episodes in season 1 actually plot relevant.
So Alex dying in last season is not a point in its favor for season 6.
It's a point in the fact that Amazon knows how to treat the physics in the show, which is exactly what you were talking about. Give me a break. I'm responding to what you just said. I'm not grabbing some random argument to make it all justified. You said that Sci-Fi did the physics better than Amazon, and I called that horseshit because
part of it being the physics that they actually showed. They showed the complicated nature of existing in space better. They showed better.
They show it just as well. I feel like, when Amazon takes over,
I feel like that's an argument we shouldn't even bog ourselves down on. Like
we're 3 seasons in. It's like, okay, people have watched the first parts of this show.
Right.
They know. Let's not go over it again and again.
They don't need to go over it for it to feel like it's still an element that matters.
It is still an element. Should we talk about the fact that Holden is pulling railgun snapshots while he's having a running gun battle with 3 other ships, and he takes 2 of them out, and then they basically juke the Pella's pilot into making a stupid mistake because he made the same stupid mistake 3 times? Should we talk about the fact that when they're going to Medina Station, that they're very, very worked up about the fact that if they fuck this up on their end, that the station may decide to go reactive and slow down space-time again, like it did in season 4? Should we talk about the fact that the joint, MCRN and UNN task force got obliterated by railguns that they didn't realize that the fucking Free Navy put on the station? Like, how about the fact that the station is impregnable, so they literally had to band titanium bands around the station because they couldn't dig in, so they built an establishment on it. Like, that's why I'm saying I don't know what you're talking about when you're mad that they didn't do things in the show, because I watched the same episodes.
Right. So when something is done badly, sometimes it's hard to point out exactly why. I felt like things dragged and also were rushed at the same time.
Sure.
I felt like the things that I cared about, which became not the people, which was all the rest of the situation of the entire solar system, including the station, that mattered more to me, and they glossed over it. They just
which parts were you mad that they didn't focus on enough?
I would like to know more about the food and freezing problem on Earth that they opened it with, and I thought that was going to really matter.
Sure.
I thought that the resources,
it matters more in the book, but yeah.
So yes, those things should be there. I wanted to know about the complications of all of the resources and the scarcity, because they're destroying where everything is coming from.
Right.
So when Inaros gave up Ceres and Avasarala was dealt with, they can't let all these people starve to death or suffocate.
Right.
But she didn't have the resources. I liked that problem, and then it was just done.
It got resolved by Drummer, though, right?
It did, but it wasn't. It no longer felt like a problem. The same thing happened with Drummer's family. With he had his arm crushed. Oh, he's getting the regrow gel. No, that's not going to work, and so they need surgery. But it's going to be 17 weeks out for him to get the surgery that he needs. I thought that was going to be she needed to go to Avasarala to get a favor, but no, you're a drummer. You're at the front of the line. Everything's fixed.
Yeah,
and it's like. I wasn't allowed to care about any of the problems.
I think that moment was built up actually to show how much, kind of to establish, because I feel like maybe that they kind of needed to show this more. Actually, how much Drummer matters to a lot of the Belters. That she's almost on the same level as Bad Guy that I somehow forget the name of right now. She's like the other part of that. What?
Like Inaros, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
I mean, she's basically Fred Johnson now, in a way, right? Like she doesn't have the power base and the clout and everything like that, but she would be that kind of equivalent in a sense, even though Fred was an inner, so that changes things up a little bit. But so, I mean, if you want to worry about character drama, how about the mini arc they had with Amos figuring out that Holden literally sandbagged them and made the war last longer than it needed to.
That was okay until they walked it back when he was getting drunk with Bobby, and she said, well, the only reason that you fight is for the people next to you. And he's like, yeah, okay, so therefore none of the problems that he had with Holden mattered. And they walked it back. He should have been angry. He should have been doing more about that.
I'm not sure that was the takeaway there, though. Like the takeaway about her speech and really that whole episode, because that's one of the more emotionally charged episodes in this season, is that the whole underlying theme of that episode is family again, which is a big deal to Amos. And Amos is pissed off because of what he said to Holden, which is, if we're not trying to win, what the fuck are we doing out here? And Bobby says, you know what, that doesn't matter because I trust Holden and we're family. And Amos is like, you know what, fuck it, you're right. Because that's Amos's entire character.
That's just in line with who he is, right? Like
Right.
if he gives it, like even Naomi, that he's angry at her for a while, right? He still, when anyone he gives his loyalty to, it's pretty much unquestionable. Like he doesn't take it
Well,
back.
he questions it, right? But then,
Yeah,
but he
doesn't
actually
withdraw
goes to
it.
them and tries to figure it out,
He questions
compared to
it, and
Amos
he's
in the
able
first
to
3
realize
seasons.
that they can make the wrong decision, and that was a very big wrong decision to make. And so he's able to
depends,
realize
though, right?
that maybe he shouldn't put his trust in someone who's going to be swayed by that.
By the fact that he doesn't want to murder his significant other's child
Yep.
in front of her.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wrong decision.
Okay.
His relationship does not matter more than everyone else in the solar system.
It was his
That
decision to
is-
make, though, right? That's Holden's
No.
entire argument.
It was her decision
Yes.
to make, and he overruled it
Yeah.
as she was angry
He's
at
the
it. And then they
captain.
just patch things up, and then they move on. I never really cared about their relationship, but it's just kind of like, it's worthless to me.
Yes.
fact that
Okay.
she
So
made-
that's your problem. You've watched 5 seasons and you didn't get committed at any point. So that's season 6's problem, because in 5 seasons you never learned to care about Naomi and Holden. Like, give me a break.
I also think
so are you
takeaway
telling
there's
me
a little
that-
wrong?
You're telling me that when she does take out the Pella and she thinks that she's killed her son, you didn't feel anything there either?
I can
Because
feel
I'm
for
beginning
her
to
pain.
think that the season's not to blame
No.
for that.
No, I can feel for her pain. He was wrong to override her decision that she had already made.
He doesn't really override the decision she's already made. They don't really talk about it.
Yeah, they did. That was
And-
actually exactly her argument. Because when he confessed to her that he didn't blow it, and specifically not to kill her son because he didn't want her to wake up hating him every morning,
Right.
she said she had tried to save him, she couldn't, and he's made his choice, and she can't stop it. But Inaros needs to die, and if he's going to choose to be with his father, that's what has to happen. And yes, it was going to hurt her, but she was prepared for that.
Yeah, she was prepared for that, but did she fire the missile? Because I don't think he overrode any of her choices in that moment.
She could have
Like,
overridden the missile just as much as he did, and she didn't.
Yeah, but he says it's not really a choice for her, it's a choice for him. He cannot be the one to kill her child. Like,
right.
he doesn't want to live with them.
Right. And I mean, yes, from a 10,000-foot utilitarian, perspective, he made the wrong call for the solar system in that moment, right? Sure.
Mhm.
Let's take him to tribunal or everything, but did he make the right choice for James Holden? And did he make the understandable choice as a character, which is part of what we're talking about, right? I like the little bug out look you got going on there. So,
Holden always had a problem with being the moralizer. And
Sure.
sometimes that was fun, especially when he got to be wrong. Like in the early seasons when you can moralize all you want, but you have to run away to survive now, as Naomi and Amos kept pointing out to him at those times. I think he was a coward, and he shouldn't have done that. He did that because of his own fear, and he didn't want to live with his own decisions.
That's
And
I think coward is a little strong
coward
there.
I don't think Holden's
Yeah.
character is a coward. I don't think
He is in
he's
that moment.
established as a coward.
He doesn't care about dying. He cares about living.
Yeah, but you don't say the way you phrase it is like he's a coward. Like that's who
He's
he
a coward
is.
in that he didn't want to live with the cost. And I needed something
of
to feel
one
like a
choice.
cost
So
of killing
so
her
fuck
son.
James Holden, who saved Earth how many times? Fuck him, who's looked out for the Belters. Fuck him, who's made these other choices. But because he wouldn't kill one child, you fucking coward. What?
This kind of reminds me of the conversation we had with Ben when you were on our side with Captain America being selfish. He's being selfish in this moment.
Doesn't make him a coward.
I don't think it makes him a coward.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't think of it any other way of that he is afraid of the consequences to his personal life for having made that decision. And so
I don't even think it's the
happen.
consequence. I don't think it's the consequences.
Exactly what you said. He couldn't live with Naomi knowing that he murdered her son.
Yeah, but
He couldn't live in the fear that she was going to hate him. So he didn't do it.
That's not. I mean, my takeaway from that conversation is more. It's not that he's afraid of what consequences it might have between him and Naomi. It's that he can't live with knowing he killed her son. It's it's a him thing. It's an inside. He will not be able to go on knowing that he killed some like this person that he loves the most child.
And so he's the wrong person to be in charge. And so when Amos said, "Do you want me to take away?"
He's not in charge. He's a privateer.
He was. That's the thing, because he's the captain, right?
Well, he's the captain, but he's fighting in a war that he shouldn't have been there. They shouldn't have been jumped. It was a target of opportunity on both sides, right? Anaris choked with his 3-1 ship advantage, and Holden choked, not wanting to murder his wife's whatever, significant other's child, right? So it happened. Like, I mean, maybe the fact that you're mad about it is all the emotional investment that you need to have in that scene.
And that's because it didn't get to cost. Nothing got to cost anything. Not even the characters who were doing suicide runs into like whatever, they didn't even get to.
So what should have happened? He should have been left alone on the Rocinante, and everybody should have left because he didn't torpedo that kid one time.
Possibly.
Is it just possible that maybe their relationship was stronger than that? Is that possible? Like that one mistake doesn't doom an entire... Why not? That's exactly what happened, isn't it? Nobody wanted to tell Bobby for 3 fucking episodes because they thought that she was going to put him in the morgue. And when she finally finds out, she shrugs it off. She was the one everybody was afraid to tell. And once fucking drunk Amos finally says something, she's like, yeah, shit happens. People make command decisions. Because she's a Marine, that shit happens. She doesn't ask why. She does or dies. Sorry, butchered quote. But anybody who's a history nerd knows what I'm talking about. But anyway, it's a stupid quote, but I used it. But she's literally a Marine, right? That's the chain of command. She assumes Holden had a good reason for it. And if that's all that was, that's all that was. And they made up for it in the end anyway. The cost of that decision is that Naomi now lives the rest of her life with the guilt of killing her son. He's still alive, but she doesn't know that. That's the part that irritates me, actually, is the fact that that's basically going to be hidden from her indefinitely, as far as we know, that she killed her own son. That's the cost of that decision. Does that make you happy? Is that enough cost for you?
I wish that he would have actually died.
Philip? Yeah. Well, he saw the writing on the wall and ran. So
I didn't like any of the scenes with him because they felt pointless. All of it felt really dumb and pointless. And I had hoped that it was going to be, he realizes Daddy is a bad guy and then he kills Marco. And he didn't.
Well, he does realize Daddy's a bad guy, but
he didn't do anything about it.
So is he a coward by not single-handedly taking out Anaros and spending the rest of his life in a brig?
I had hoped that's what he was going to at least.
But is he a coward? I'm asking you, is he a coward because he didn't do that and because he got on the last ship out of town before they got eaten by the Dutchman?
I don't know if I would use coward for that.
Weird. Right. But that's the position he was in. He was by himself behind enemy lines. He was starting to wake up. He was obviously oscillating.
The conversations between Marcos and Philip, all of it seemed to be Philip, or I had thought it was supposed to be building up to Philip realizing that Marcos is going to get everyone else killed. And so for him to save anyone that he cares about, which is apparently the Belters, as he does seem to attach to the rest of the Belters and wants to do good things for them, I had thought he was going to take the leadership away from Marcos, probably by killing him, and then forcibly standing down so that people would stop fighting. I thought he was going to take that mantle, and he ran away.
I think there's a pretty major flaw in your logic there. I don't think the Belters would follow him if he killed his father. But I don't think he commands the respect that his father does.
I mean, he does a little bit, but I think even more importantly, so some of the themes that you're bumping into, which are Philip should have killed Anaros and he should have made the Free Navy stand down, and then everybody sings Kumbaya, right? That storyline exists, but it's not Philip's. That storyline is Drummer's. Drummer is the one that has to deal with joining up with the Inners and standing down her military forces. She doesn't entirely, but all of the dialogue with Drummer when she's getting ready to make the deal with Avasarala is, just because we're allies doesn't mean we're going to sit there and have your boot on our face again. And that comes back again with the TransUnion talk, in the final episode. So that basically the Belters are concerned that things are going to go back to normal, which was really, really bad for them. And that's exactly what would have happened if Philip said, hey, we made a mistake, but it's cool I killed Inaros and we stand down. What do you think? Do you think they're just going to let the Free Navy off? You think they're going to tow them back to Ceres and they're going to be fine? They're absolutely going to subjugate them all over again. And that was the concern that Drummer was having to deal with by joining up, because, it's a committee, right? We have one representative from Earth, we have one representative from Mars, and we have one representative from the Belt. How fair is that? Except that it isn't, because that's how it's always been. And the Inners have always subjugated the Belt. And that's what her concern was, right? Is like, yeah, great, we get a vote. We get a quote unquote equal voice until you vote us down every time. That was her story, is what I'm saying. So I think that was there.
Was
it just
point
wasn't.
Of his story. His story was boring. And I had hoped it was going to have
his
some
story was human. That's what I don't think you're understanding. There isn't some story, okay? There isn't some moralizing of protomolecule bad. There isn't some, man, it's going to be so cool when in 10,000 years humanity takes off to the stars and they use the ring gate to colonize all of these different planets. That's all there. It's a human story, right? If anything, Holden is the one with the moralizing story, right? So his is the one where it's like you can ask him what the point is and that sort of thing. And mostly I think the point is he's a good guy trying to do as good as he can in the situations where he is, right? So it becomes more of Holden's story. But if you look at all the rest of the characters, it's just history. I take it as like an alternate history, an alternate future history type of thing. What's Avasarala's, what's her story? What's her moralizing? Does she get to the end and she realizes that she's running on 3 hours of sleep or less a day, and that, all of her years of being a bitch have finally caught up for us? Or does she realize that she's the hardest bitch in the solar system right now and she's making all the calls that she has to while still trying to keep in mind that everybody's human along the way? Is that her story?
I actually really like
Naomi's story. Like, it just on and on. Like, none of these, I don't think any of these characters necessarily have a trajectory. That's not what we're watching, right? We're just watching what happens when we go colonize space. It makes sense that Earth is going to be the central government because that's where it all started. It makes sense that Mars is going to eventually have their own kind of council that turns into their congressional, whatever, the MCRN, right? The congressional, I forget the whole thing. It makes sense that the Belt is not necessarily, an actual government, right? They're more of a loose confederacy of factions. And then how does that play out? And then to stir the pot, we bring in the protomolecule, right? But there isn't Philip isn't Captain America. He's not pick a character with a trajectory. He's not Harry Dresden. He's not anybody there. He's just reacting. He's just doing what he was raised to think is right. He stands up to the crew in the mess hall and he's the ideologue, right? He's that banner waving revolutionary for a moment. And then he sees his dad just go completely off the rails. And he starts to have his doubts. And before he can do anything about that, they get eaten by the Dutchman, because that's how physics works in this universe. Because there are interdimensional aliens that are eating ships, and the Rocinante figured it out and weaponized it, which, spoiler alert, has ramifications down the line, So there doesn't have to be an arc, right? Your life doesn't necessarily have an arc. Mine doesn't have an arc. It's just a human story.
Yes, this is why fiction is usually more fun than reality, because fiction puts that there.
But it depends, because science fiction is about dreaming about all those possible futures. It's about seeing what that looks like. It's about hopefully by the time we get to where we are in the Expanse, we don't make the same mistakes, minus the protomolecule at least. But yeah.
And there is character development, and there is Avasarala, I think, has a very good character development over the course of these seasons. She definitely becomes, I would say, and it's not like she wasn't human, but get a more humanistic view that she did not have before.
Avasarala, is that what you were saying?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think
One of all the
know.
unlikely alliances, her and was it Anna or what's the
Monica.
Monica? Thank you. Anna's the actress name. I just looked at it a little while ago, but yeah. But yeah, I mean, if you want to,
much. There was like somehow this season, it just like it crammed things too much. There, like the things that I thought were going to be important didn't have time to breathe, and the things that I didn't care about had way too much screen time.
I mean, I think a lot. Those are some decisions they've had to make for the show, right? I think a lot of the decisions they made is in the hopes that they get to make more Expanse later.
Well, certainly, I think season 6 reflects that, and I think the ultimate push. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but the ultimate push comes to shove is the fact that they stuck as close to the material as I think is reasonable. Like it's one of the best adaptations I've heard of or seen.
Have you read the Expanse books yet?
Not yet.
Okay, so I can't judge it. There is value in sticking very closely to the source material. But they've already deviated significantly, at least in terms of drummer, right? She has 3 characters amalgamated into one.
Yeah, so, some of them were. Yep.
Right, and so just in that fact, and that she has her story, I don't know how much it reflects the source characters, but they're already deviating as much as they might need to.
That doesn't change the shape of the story, though, right? That's like... I'm not sure I have
bits, right, and then somehow maybe like the middle bits can change how you get there, and that's fine. But those middle bits still need to be entertaining. Why am I watching this if I'm not being entertained? This is entertaining.
I mean, I just don't understand how you could.
Because we had to talk about it on the fucking podcast.
Yeah,
I don't understand how you liked season 1 to 5 so much, and then don't like season 6.
I like.
It's my only problem with season 6 is that it does. I definitely want the rest of the story, right? There were plenty of things that I wish they had investigated more. You know, season 1, they barely start to tease you about the proto molecule. Season 2, you get a little bit more. I mean, finally, with like the ring gate and stuff like that.
Weirdness of proto molecule, because like, and one of the biggest things that hooked me in was it was a murder mystery. I like noir murder mystery. I like broken detective in a space station, and not having Miller did significantly decrease my enjoyment of the show. And I know that's just like, maybe the story is done.
Right. You should have checked your doors and corners. That's where they get you. So,
in terms of we have a name I've not seen it before in chat. He says that the only good character in the Free Navy was the captain of the Pella, Rosenfeld. I did enjoy her character, by the way.
But she was the only one who was reasonably written in that whole side of the arc.
I love
like an idiot.
The best character on the Pella for me was Tadeo. I love that character, and they made me care about his story a lot.
Was he the one with the brother?
Yeah,
yeah. I didn't grab the names of all the tertiary characters along the way. So yeah, but how's that for a human story? But it didn't matter, so it doesn't count. Is that what we're playing? I want more human stories, but I also want them to matter. Is that the intersection?
That's not the. I mean, I do like human stories, but that's not actually what I was saying this time. I cared less about the people than the resources and the actual situation of things. The fact that Earth was not going to be able to breathe, it was freezing, it wasn't going to be able to make food. That's a significant problem that has downstream effects because everywhere is still trying to get soil from Earth. Ceres is still relying on soil from Earth. All of the colonies are still dealing with that. And the sense of attrition, I guess, like that mattered more in previous seasons. The politicking of all of that just wasn't here.
To harken back to what Justin said way back earlier that I never got around to kind of replying to, where you said something about name a season that had more than 6 episodes. Something like that. You said that early.
Yeah, I wasn't 100% sure if there were. So
every season is more than 10 except this one.
Oh, that's rough.
I which I think might be a funding thing. I'm not sure because it does
Right.
seem like they tried to pack in a lot. I mean, and that's probably the hand they were dealt.
Well, so
Right.
if they had to pack in a lot, then why did I feel like it fucking dragged so much?
Because they also wanted to stay true to the source material.
Because they weren't telling the stories
as
you
they
wanted
could.
them to tell.
They were packing
Because
in new
apparently we
things.
shouldn't have focused on Ceres. We should have focused on Prax and his miracle cure. That's the story that you wanted.
Or I mean, even just the story of Prex, like the scientist being killed, or Prex getting the information out. If there had been like a 10-minute deviation of like, here's some important information and here's how it matters, and all it gets is we get a 30-second message from Prax, which was fun, and then an episode later, Avasarala says it looks like it's proving fruitful, and that's it.
Because that's not the story they told.
That's not. That's a fair point. It's not the story they told. I think they would have given, like in other seasons, which I felt sometimes. While I love the character stories in the Expanse, and I love the overarching world building. That's probably why I like the show so much. Right, the plot is like almost third to me in fiction. Like I think they had a lot of stuff they wanted to do, and they had 6 episodes to do it in. So they were like, okay, we don't need to dive that deeply into this because we do not have the time. And then you can make the counter argument, which I think is fair. Like the kids that you say you hated, I personally liked it because
I hated them. Oh my god, I hated them.
I think
so much.
it's world building, so I found it very enjoyable.
Oh, that was so badly done. I mean,
spoiler alert: it's important later. So
I
Yeah,
don't
funny,
care
it's important later.
because it didn't. I
because
knew
you only
from
got the first third of the story. That's why.
Okay, so when I saw the trailer for the season, I knew it was going to be a giant distraction of all of the Inaros and everything like that. When I also really, really want to know about the proto-model, I knew that was going to be something that they're just dangling there and not really diving into much because I just could tell. But child actors are rough. They're hit and miss. These ones sucked.
You're gonna hate on the kids?
Yeah, a little bit because their child actors have been better. Like I've seen The Sixth Sense.
Oh my goodness,
they can be better.
Yeah, they don't have Sixth Sense child actor money. They only had TV show Amazon child money.
That
I don't know.
It also was distractingly badly put together. Like the set shouldn't be intrusive on my enjoyment of the story, and that set that they used for Laconia all the time, it was too bright. It was too close. It was too artificial, and it bothered me every time I had to look at it. And just the whole little plot line, and they could have shortened it by so much. Like you could have skipped to the pet cemetery point instead of having like there's a child being annoying and a dog and a bird or something. Like they compacted it. If they have so little time, then why did they drag out everything that I hated and ignored the things that I wanted?
Yeah, I'll be sure. I'm going to travel back in time and be like, look, guys, you guys are about to tell a fantastic story, but it's really going to cheese off this one gal with a podcast. So maybe don't go down that angle because she hates it. Everybody else liked it, but she hated it.
But
I'm at the risk of me missing. At the risk of me missing the point myself, have you considered that maybe you're being too critical here? Like
there was at times
like,
I wondered
what
if I was
could
being
they have
too
cut
critical.
out? Like the bird subplot doesn't matter in the scheme of things, but it's what gave the little girl the idea to use the dogs in the first place, right? And the little boy dying didn't matter to anything except for we needed to see that could work on humans and what that actually looked like. And you get a little taste of Laconia, which is, again, important because the future stories kind of deal with that, you know? So you have things that otherwise didn't necessarily matter directly to the story of like the Inners versus the Belt, but you needed to know that Inaros wasn't actually in charge. He was a distraction. You couldn't just have the Admiral show up and just be like, surprise, it was me all along and you've been a useful distraction. And then that's literally the only scope of the story that you get the entire time. Like that shit's been building up since, at least 2 seasons ago with the whole, what was the name of the ship that disappeared with
Barkeith?
The Barkeith. Yeah, I had the complete wrong name in my mind, right? So it's like the Barkeith was important because, again, it was showing you in advance of something that's now important, which was the whole Dutchman thing, which is what allowed Naomi to take out like the entire Free Navy and the Pella basically right then. You know, like that's been the story the entire time. Like they give you a tease like 2 seasons ago that they slowly build up on that then becomes plot relevant. And that's exactly what I think is going on with the dogs on Laconia. There's plenty of more world building with the proto-molecule and things that I don't think really made it into the show. But again, those are all important on what's going on there because that's going to be important for the rest of the story. I'm not a huge fan of the time jump. I'm not a huge fan of some of the little details they did. But like, what details would you have omitted from the kid's story on Laconia? You want that to have been in the background?
The whole thing
you wanted
almost, I feel like.
Yeah, you want that. Should that have been replaced with the whole subplot from Prax? Because that's the decision you're looking at, right? You got to, like, Prax can basically give you a one-liner that says Earth isn't doomed, it's going to be okay. Versus the entire subplot of showing him doing sciencey things. Is that what we needed? We needed more Prax with pipettes and, and test tubes.
I'm thinking of almost like fancy. He has to get to a point to be able to send the message to Amos, right? So he has to run through whatever station, hide, basically do spy crawly super things on super station, whatever, to get the thing. Like that could have been really exciting. And Prax was always fun. So
maybe
that is an easy thing to enjoy. Right. The Laconia side plot could have been written better. See,
like,
these writers
what would you have changed?
Not children.
Oh, okay. So it makes sense that a 30-year-old plus scientist like hit the love of his life dies. Is that what we want? We want more Frankenstein's monster and less kids making stupid decisions because they're kids.
Something that happens.
Yeah, but it's a more understandable decision from a kid acting aside that you don't like.
Right. Thank you. Like. Because as soon as your zombie wife came back to life, you would have called the military and they would have put her down like they were going to do with the kid anyway. Talk about a human moment. Talk about horrifying. You know, like they were so frightened of their child in that moment. They didn't ask any questions. They immediately locked him away and called the Marines. Like, that's dark, man. Like, don't get me wrong. I've already had talks with my family. The zombie family gets shot in the face, right? But at the same time, like, that's not exactly what was happening here. Like your child is talking to you. There's some room for communication there. You know, your child is still scared, not knowing what's going on. You know,
they could have been more of that. They could have.
Okay.
Instead of the
next time we'll take the season that was already too long. We'll tack 4 episodes on it so that we can properly flesh that out.
They could have replaced some of what they've already done with that. I mean, like that's why I said earlier, sometimes it is hard to point out exactly what they should have been doing better, but I can tell you what didn't work for me.
But you're mad about it. That's the part that I don't understand.
I'm mad
though.
because
you can't express to me why you're mad.
I mean, I can understand why you would find things you didn't like, and there's like I don't understand how you could like hate season 6 while you enjoyed 1 to 5. That's where I kind of lose the thread a little bit because it is in. I would say it's one of the most consistent TV shows. It's like someone said on Reddit when the season was over. It's like, and I kind of like I was like, man, that really hit home. Where it's like, it's so weird to me that I finished a TV show and I'm not angry. That's just like lately. That's all it's been when some TV shows and it's like, man, that did not end well. And while
there were points where season 6 reminded me of season 8 of Game of Thrones.
Oh geez, whatever. Don't. You're not even close. You're just mad and you're throwing shit at the wall to help justify your mad. Because
it wasn't quite as bad as season 8. But
it wasn't remotely as bad. It's not remotely as bad as season 8 was in any regard other than your own. Not to mention the fact that these books were actually written. So again, they followed the source material. We're in the middle of a story, right? So for example, evidence of the continuing story and the fact that these threads are still going on is literally the last 5 minutes of episode 6, right? You did watch that, right? Where Holden just sits down and it's like, we still got to figure out what's going on with this. Where's the proto-molecule sample? What about that? What about TransUnion? All of those things, because it's the middle of a story. Like in medias res, that's the Expanse. They started with the Cant and they took us all the way to killing Inaros. That's the snippet of history we got in this universe.
We got the the built a revolution story in the Expanse, kind of like that's the seasons we got, and there's a lot more in the whole world. I think even I haven't read the books. I've read about the books, but even in the books, it's like even when we get you get the full story with the timestamp and everything. There's still tons of world building things, and that's what it is, and you don't get the story about that. And that's how it is in most fiction, right? Most books we read, there is a ton of world building where it's just like we don't get the story. That's not what this story is about.
Right. And I understand being frustrated, but where that turns to hate, that's the part that I don't understand, right? Because like another example of that where I was extremely frustrated until, season 2 was Altered Carbon, right? Altered Carbon, I felt like the alien technology was so heavily influencing the story that I wanted to know more about that. I wanted to know more about the culture and whatever. And then season 2, it's like, hey, we're going to tell you some of that. You're still not going to get to know everything. Didn't you watch it? That's why I was using that as an example.
I only watched the first season.
Yeah, you should have watched season 2, I guess. But
I've heard
then you could have been. Yeah, well, it's not like, I don't know, it's not Game of Thrones season 8, but like I didn't particularly like Anthony Mackie's portrayal. I like him as an actor. Captain America or Captain Falcon and the Winter Soldier or whatever, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, like hadn't come out yet, so I didn't have a lot to compare his acting chops, right?
Am I being a little rude if I say I feel like he's one of those actors like Anthony Mackie plays an Anthony Mackie character?
Yeah, I've never really seen him be any
He definitely did that in Altered Carbon, I think, right? And that's why I'm saying, like, I know he's a better actor than that, but I think that was kind of like the direction he was given and that sort of thing. But that was one of those. So like season 1 was, I wanted more world building. I wanted to know more of the details about the alien technology and stuff like that. In the Expanse, there's always more to need to know. But like once you get to Medina Station, like you all but fill in the gaps, right? They add a little bit with the Dutchman because you need to know, I'm going to pull in so many more metaphors. It's like, the Dutchman for this world is basically the Zerg or the Gravemind, in my opinion, right? It's this mysterious force that you don't really know about, as much that's going on until way, way later in the story, and becomes more of a problem. But
what's that? The thing you love, Lovecraftian, right?
Yeah.
They're unknowable.
Well, yeah, because they're extra dimensional, so that's part of it too. Like to me, it's fascinating, and you really don't get any more explanation in the show, and I'm not even sure in the books. But basically, it's like whatever the proto-molecule race was doing, the whatever you want to call them. So whatever they were doing, their technology pissed these guys off, and that's what kind of started this war until they went back to sleep because there was no more noise, right? But that's like all that you can infer from it, as far as I know, anyway. But yeah, sure, like there can always be more world building and that sort of thing. There's 1,300 plus colonies, at least, especially after the jump, right? And we're going to be dealing with mostly one of them. We're going to be dealing with Laconia. So, I mean, I guess it's not your story if you're mad about that sort of thing. There's just not enough paper. And if you think it drags out now, wait till we get to the city council on Colony 157, and what they've got to worry about compared to everybody else,
It does those unknowable. Brandon Sanderson has written a sci-fi book series, young adult. Do you plan on what?
I know the series, but I haven't read it.
Yeah, it's Starside.
That's the most recent book of it, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, third book just came out, which I'm gonna order soon. Anyway, there's the. Do you plan on reading it?
Probably, maybe not on my list at the moment.
It. It's just I wanted to make a comparison to these alien things, but
go ahead.
I mean, I don't want. It's a pretty major plot spoiler for the second book and world building thing. So if you want to read it, I don't really want to spoil it.
Can you make a dressing reference?
Not really. It's a very specific plot point, but it's fine. Okay. When you get there, we can talk about when you get there. In 5
minutes, he already mentioned Lovecraft, so I think that's all the crossover, right? But
but yeah, and I think had to make a decision, like Justin says, with staying true to the source material, which they've been doing pretty well. They had to make a decision about, okay, do we want to focus more on some of these things that we can kind of abbreviate a bit more, or we can flesh it out because it's fleshed out in the books, right? Or do we want to set up the possibility of the future? Because I think all the people who are making this show like really likes it, and I think they really hope that they'll get to make more, maybe in a couple of years or something. But
in about 40, they just got to wait for the actors and actresses to age up for the role. So, no, I mean, when I first read the wiki, back in like season 3-ish, somewhere around there, like it was one of those where I was like, what the shit is going on, right? Because it's like you're basically getting, like the back of book summary, right? And so it was like, then some asshole named Marco Inara shows up with a free navy. What the fuck's that about? Then some asshole named Admiral Duarte, he shows up, and then they've got this whole other colony, and then it skips like 40 years. I'm like, what do you mean it skips? Like, how do you keep the same characters, right? I was like, that's just dumb. But I kind of like went back and read it again recently with with the additional context of the extra couple of seasons, and I'm like, okay, I can kind of see it, and there's still, in a way, they're still telling the same story as well, right? Because the future books has everything to do with the Laconia stuff, right? Because you see, I think it's a battleship or a dreadnought or whatever last season. The whole thing with the crazy proto-molecule scientist and the whole like, yes sir, we found it. That doesn't matter, but it definitely fucking matters for the next book, and for the time jump and everything like that. We literally saw clips of their ships in flight. Inaros knows that they've got a fleet. That's what he was asking for help from. And none of that mattered to the story, but it setting those things up that, again, like, I feel like that's one of the things that the seasons and the books have done pretty well, is that they tease this shit way early, like even taking the stealth technology of season 1, for example. Basically you hear next to nothing about it in season 2, and then season 3, Inaros, is it season 3? I might have my timelines mixed up, whatever. He starts coding asteroids with it, and boom, now we got a war.
It would be
4 maybe. Yeah.
So. Yeah, because 5 is the aftermath, right? That's where Amos is on Earth most of the season. Right.
Yeah, makes sense. So yeah, like you have some of those things that are like, they bring those back. They either set it up directly or it retrogrades and pulls in the story. So that's part of where, like, even like continuity, the plot, some of the stories that they're telling, not to mention that I think there's some of the coolest space battles that have graced the screen. And I'm comparing that to like DS9 and Babylon 5, right? So it's like, look at how little we've had really cool space battles. Maybe you could say Serenity because, the battle they had there, but it was so chaotic in comparison. But just seeing them actually use the science and the technology, like you tried to say that they don't, like, we don't hear anything about the juice after Alex dies, but other than that, because that was like his one line 83 times a book, here comes the juice. But I don't know, it was all there. Holden almost getting himself killed episode 1. I liked it a lot. Obviously didn't get to talk about enough of why, but
the whole idea with the fact that these railguns can basically, the more they can just stand in place.
Yeah,
the more
when
powerful
they were
they
explaining that they put the railguns on the thing that does not move, that was exciting. And I was just like, there were some points of it that I was kind of hooked in, but then it just felt like they didn't do enough of the stuff that I wanted them to do. And they kept dragging down with characters that I used to care about, and now I don't. And that is something significant for them to say that now I don't care about the characters that I was very invested in a few seasons ago.
Which were what? Because I don't think we got too much in the specifics. You wanted Holden to have more consequences. I think we got that, right? So who else? Like,
I enjoyed what it was for the first 3 seasons. I like the interactions and the banter. Everyone felt like characters I could actually kind of connect to, and somehow in this one, I don't get to connect to them, but they're dragging things out and they're doing things wrong. Like,
so just the Rossi crew in general, you didn't connect with.
Well, for some reason, I was connected to them, and now I'm not. But I was more connected to all of those characters in season 1 than I am now.
I don't understand. I feel way more connected to these characters. Like I cared way less in season 1. Like I think it took
in some
two,
way, I wonder
3.
if it has to do with the fact that I thought they might actually die. I liked Shed, and then Shed died, and that felt close. But now none of them are dying. Not even the dying girl gets to die.
She will die, just not now.
At least I thought it was going to be that she was going to melt her brain.
She sacrificed herself. Yeah. So,
yeah.
But that wasn't her character arc. Her character arc was she finally realized she didn't need to use the mods. So also, not that it matters, but they kind of touch on that.
She did use the mods. Yeah. She had to use the mods to strap it together. So she did do it. She just didn't get to have a cost to it. That's what she said.
She doesn't. No, she told Naomi I didn't use the mods just to strap in some elbow grease. No,
that's the whole point of that moment.
Okay, I had heard it.
He also one of those like 5 or 6 episode vignettes, like those mini 5-minute things, has to deal with her, and so they touch on that scene a little bit again, which I thought was interesting. But I guess so. Just so we're clear, all of those little episodes are character moments. So if you care about that, you might want to go look at it, because I feel like it does add in some of that context. But if not, I'm just putting the suggestion out there. It's not going to further the plot. There wasn't a whole lot of, man, I really wish I had known that in the episodes. But they are 5-minute character moments. They deal
I love me some
with
character moments.
Michio, the guy I can't remember, a drummer's relationship. They deal with Clarissa.
I attach to characters more than I attach to other things, I think, and that's why it feels so jarring that I care about them so little right now. Because in almost any other story, I attach to the characters and how they're interacting with everything else significantly. So the fact that I'm so off-put by them, something bad happened.
I just don't. I mean, I respect that you feel that way. That's your feelings and how you take it. What you take away from your entertainment is what you take away. But I can't like get into like see from your point of view, like from a person who like was so like really liked 1 to 5, and then just like really hate 6, and to the point where you don't care about the characters.
There were some points that dragged in 4 and 5. I'll say that.
Sure.
There were some parts that were exciting. Like that's why like the first 3 were great in my opinion. And those were the ones that were handled by Sci-Fi, and it's just noticed like there is a distinct change there.
I think I don't know. This might not be it, but part of the change I think is like I think the first three seasons especially, like what you mentioned, they were almost more a detective story, right? And almost each episode ended where you needed to know more, right? They didn't necessarily, end with somebody dangling over a pit and, oh my God, how are they going to get out of this, right? But the story was never done, right? There wasn't ever an instance where they ended the episode and you knew everything that was going on. It was always like, okay, well, we got to find Julie. We've got to find this. We got to find the protomolecule. We've got to find Fred Johnson. We got to find your mom. I don't know, whatever. But there was always more coming, right? There was always like, what just happened? We need to know more of the story. Whereas in like season 6, like it's an ongoing story, but they don't necessarily leave you with that hunger other than in like a couple of spots, right? Like Strange Dogs is the first episode, directly leads into Azure Dragon, right? Which is a really big, important thing for the story, but doesn't otherwise get any press once it's resolved, because they immediately go on to the next mini story, which is about Ceres.
So
because basically
Dragon, I thought they were going to focus on it a lot, and like, okay, here's the thing, and now it's resolved.
Well, it got its whole episode. Like, how much more did you need from one ship?
It was a short portion of the episode, from what I remember, because there's other things happening. So the thing that I thought was going to be very significant felt not.
I mean, I think this boils down to you. I don't understand how it can get this much of dislike from you to the point of where you don't care about the characters anymore. But it sounds like it kind of boils down to they have 6 episodes, so there are pacing issues and things don't get to breathe as much, and that really irked you. but I don't get how that then boils down to I don't care about these characters anymore.
I think I could most boil down to, and I think that you're right in some way that in previous seasons there was this dragging thing. There was this like, what's happening now is important to what's going to happen later, and I need to know more. I need to put it all together, and that's missing here. I felt like things didn't get to cost. I wanted to see Naomi be in pain that her son died, and the cost of that not happening, I didn't feel was bad enough. I needed to feel that if this was as bad as it was, I needed to feel like I was going to lose a character I cared about, and not one of them died. Someone should have been
so
lost.
one of the crew should have been put through the wash, is what you're saying.
At least, yeah.
Haven't they been through enough?
Which one should have died? Who would you have killed?
Bobby, at least. Bobby and Amos, they did a suicide run.
Okay.
They should have.
Oh, we did. Oh, man,
One
we
of them
haven't even
should have
talked
died.
About how fucking great that whole I won't say scene necessarily, but the whole landing, it was so good. And when you,
I would have
it was
really enjoyed
when
that
you followed
if
Amos
they expanded it more.
Right.
Like, the complications that they had of dealing with that, the whole assault and getting the railguns, I liked that problem, and it didn't get to breathe as much as I think it should have.
Which part? The part that
All of it.
Bobby accidentally blew up the entire CNC? Like
things like that, or because I didn't even fully get that she had managed to do that, or it was an accident. I thought the Rosie had done it.
Well, that's because it panned away. Maybe you blinked, but
yeah, so something. Like
it wasn't.
that,
I didn't see it as an accident. She made a decision because there's like we have to blow this up. We can't take it, and then she made that decision.
Right.
Imagine how much better it would have been if that had been a whole episode, or 40 minutes of an episode, or something. There's more of it. So it was able to.
It was.
I feel more invested.
Okay, if this whole thing boils down to it should have been a 10-episode season, great. Write some angry letters to Amazon. I agree with you, right? But you're stuck in a paradoxical loop where you're like, it was too long, not long enough, and God damn it, Bobby should have gotten a whole episode, and we should have seen Naomi cry for a whole episode over killing Philip, and all of these things that actually did happen. You just didn't think they got enough time because it was only 6 episodes.
So one of the first things I said, it both felt way too long and way too short.
Right.
It dragged, and yet it was rushed.
They should have focused on more of the things that you like and less of the things that you didn't like.
Exactly.
Right.
Any TV show
we
ever.
are so stupid that we didn't see that in an hour, Andreas. Man, aren't we dumb? So, and see, I was fine with it. Right. I obviously wanted more. That's about the most negative I can get right now, is that you're right. I would have loved double the number of episodes, triple the number of episodes, whatever. I would have liked more of the war sequence, because in my opinion, not just because it's flashy and cool, but if we have literally the entire fleet on all of these factions, we should have gotten more than 15 minutes. But
yes,
really,
that was one of the things that I felt rushed about. Like that was the moment that reminded me of Game of Thrones, because Game of Thrones has spent an entire episode of people talking around a fire of we're all going to die tomorrow, and then they rushed the battle. That is what happened here. They rushed the battle. That should have cost. That should have been pointed out of how difficult space combat is.
The part where I'm going to quibble on that, though, right, is that we've seen those smaller engagements, which sometimes are more dramatic, right? Like the Rossi having a 3-on-1 fight 2 episodes before, or whatever it was. But what they do for those big battles, right, is very often, if it's not dramatic, they show you the screen, right? They show you 400 missiles just launched, and we just took out 15 ships, so you don't necessarily get. What's the Sacrifice of Angels is the DS9 episode. You don't know. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to that guy over there who's watching the show that knows what I'm talking about, because that shit is hot, sexy, and awesome to watch. You've got similar things in Babylon 5. The Expanse did it when the Free Navy took over Medina Station, right? You had those 2, I think, dreadnoughts or whatever, basically one UNN, one MCRN. Naros basically, came in hot, wiped those 2 out, and just blipped on through to Laconia, right? That's when that happened. But yeah, it would have been cool to see, 50 on 50 on 50, here's MCRN and the UNN whooping the Free Navy's ass. But that's not what we got either, because the Pella play possum, right? You had Drummer's little faction get its ass beat by that MCRN cruiser because that's not the fight they were expecting. And you had him just dip over to Medina until the Dutchman ate him, and that's that whole thing overlaid with the ground assault from, the Rocinante. So, but
I thought there was
I don't know.
more space combat in this season than all the others combined.
But space combat is big, and they needed to show it.
But showed actual space combat, there was more in this season than any of the others. I would almost bet on it that time spent watching it.
It'd be close, like, because the entire time they've always made them, short, sweet little knife fights and that sort of thing, right? Like even the Dodger
or something.
The Doniger gets its ass completely beat by the stealth ships, right? It gets dwarfed, basically, right? So anybody who knows the tropes there. Then you get the Rocinante gets, a decent showing with Alex training and fighting them back, at the proto-molecule station. I forget all of that stuff because that's way back in season 1.
In season 3, when the station woke up inside the ring, and all of there was some fighting there, and all of that's what I wanted, and I didn't get it.
Yeah,
that's what they were, and now I feel like the quality has downgraded.
Yeah, again, like I could continue on, right? Because like a non-trivial chunk of their fleet got taken out by the railguns by surprise, right? So, but yes, I kind of echo the sentiment that I would have loved more space battles. I'm not sure that would have made the season better. It would have made me happy though. But
it would have given me something to enjoy. But the rest, I just felt like in general somehow was badly executed. There was a few blips of it that I liked. I liked the hanger on Walker, I think his name was, that Drummer picked up that suicided. He was fun.
I think we have
Drummer
the same
was so
idea.
strongly written, but I feel like she was one of the only ones that was strongly written, and I still didn't care about her family. I liked it when she was angry at Naomi, when they were fighting, and she said, "You knew that silence meant I didn't want to be seen." That's how people used to be written in the previous seasons, and they dumbed it down in this one.
Okay, Grandma. That was just such a right. That's how it used to be done back when it was done good. So,
yeah, I mean,
all of 3 years ago, whenever the season
back in your day.
Yeah, because I'm a baby.
Right.
You old fart.
Right,
but doesn't that just boil down to the fact that they had more time? Probably.
A lot of it.
I don't know.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe a lot of the rest of the bad execution comes from that bad decision, and it didn't help my enjoyment of this.
Well, I got 3 Expanse books in my bookshelf I should get to, so I can tell you how how accurate it probably is.
Yeah, I'm gonna see if I can get a hold of them or audiobooks or something, but it's definitely like of all the series that I want to read, that's one of the next ones. I should probably grab onto that gravy train before it's been like 6 months since I saw the episodes and, all that's faded to memory. Maybe the fires of your anger will just keep me warm that much longer until I can get through the books. So
at some point I will probably read these books, but I feel like I want time for it to fade and then I can enjoy the book separately. Yeah. Because there's some that I like. I watch a show and it's like, oh, is this based on a book? I'm going to grab it immediately. That's what happened with the Dresden Files. And as a tiny little tidbit, did you notice how many actors in this show were from the Dresden Files show? Did you notice that?
Sorry, say that again.
So there's a few actors in this show, in Expanse, that were actually from the Dresden Files TV show. Did you notice that?
I guess not. Who?
Okay, so the tall black commander, I think his name was Siddiq, that was with Avasarala a few times.
He plays Morgan, right?
No.
He was Morgan.
I knew as soon as you said tall black guy, I'm like, shit. So
yeah, and in the previous seasons there was a few of them too. Actually, no, in this one, the commander that got destroyed by the railgun when she went into the station, she was the werewolf chick.
Yeah, whatever. Okay.
Yeah,
I mean, Paul Blackthorne wasn't there like leading the charge, so
sure. But then Harry's weird waitress girlfriend was one of the MCRN people in season 3 or 4. 3.
Nice.
Yeah, there's this weird
Yeah.
amount of people.
You
from
remember
Admiral
this
Suzuki.
TV show way more than I do. I watched it once
Oh, yeah,
after
no,
reading the books, and I never watched it again.
That's definitely in the garbage bin of my brain, minus Paul Blackthorne. And now maybe I'll pay more attention to Conrad since he was Morgan. It's a raw deal that he got cast as Morgan because, in my opinion, that shoe did not fit at all. But
so he did Morgan well. I think he did Morgan better than he did his character in this show.
Okay.
I wouldn't know. I thought he was a fine
There was
character. In the
sometimes
no
when
shit. The fucking president. the guy who was the president when Avasarala was like his chief of staff or whatever was so like the president in the Expanse.
Yeah, the
he's
first
some
one.
character from the Dresden Files. So
Which one?
That's funny.
I didn't recognize him.
Victor Cutler. I have no idea what.
I mean, I know that probably boils down to this whole the working actors as they're kind of called. You know,
is he the bad guy? Is he Victor? Yeah, they changed the name.
Okay.
So instead of Cells, it's Cutler.
I didn't recognize him.
There's Monica Cutler and Victor Cutler. So
Okay.
I think they changed the name. Like I said, paid no attention. That's funny.
I think you find a lot of these actors go over these kind of shows again and again.
I wondered if they were just drawn because
Yeah.
both of them were sci-fi at first.
Probably.
Well, and yeah. Oh yeah, that might be. You know, probably run in similar circles there. Because like I've been doing that. Like I did that with Witcher and a few other things that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Like there's a lot of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. actors that just it's like I've been in one episode of like every TV show since 1995, and I'm in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. now once. You know, so like you kind of run across the actors and actresses that have those little, you know, like they've got memorable faces, but not necessarily memorable roles, right? You know, so some of these guys might be the same. Like, you know, this Conrad guy, though, he does as much like voice work, I think, as anything else. But yeah, that's fun. I didn't make that connection, and I probably will continue to not make that connection in the future because of all the shows that need to go into the dustbin of history. Like, yeah. So
you don't want to waste any brain cells on the Dresden Files show, even though it was kind of fun.
No,
It was
Paul,
kind of
Paul Blackthorne, great. Hockey stick, okay. Drumstick, funny. Bob, no.
Bob was actually,
you know,
no, but
like
Bob was fun.
was
Bob
okay.
was
Ancient Maya's a dragon, no.
I
Bob
think
doesn't
Bob
need a
was-
body. I didn't need to see Bob.
but it
He
was a
could have
good
just been
way
a
to
voice.
do it on TV, Justin.
Yeah,
You gotta give
I
it
thought
that.
that
No.
was fun.
An animatronic skull. Just have somebody with a skull
that
on
would
a
look
mop stick,
awful.
move it around. No.
At
A
least a
person
floating skull.
Bob is awful. Sure,
Nah.
fine. Put it on string.
I
don't
think you
care.
could do a Bob, the actual talking skull, with CGI very well now. You couldn't back then. It would look jarring.
Who's going to
Especially with
spend
whatever
money for
shoestring
that?
budget they
I've got
had.
$15 to get a plastic skull and put it on a mop stick and get an intern to move it around, or we could spend $15 million to animate it. Like,
Or they
It's
could
got-
pay a person.
You want the fucking
to not do
Muppets, the
CGI.
Dresden File edition?
practical effects are still in, Andreas. So
That's why they had a person.
Yeah, but what you explain isn't practical effects. It's just lame.
he's in. So the same guy, the Admiral, is apparent. He's in Discovery as well. That
I
must
need
have
to
been
catch
like
up on
yeah,
that. I've
season
been told
1,
the
2.
whole new arc is actually good. Can you confirm, Justin?
So Discovery's gotten better over time. They still make decisions that are problematic, and I think that the main plot for this season is problematic. But the B plot is very close to what I would have wanted them to do anyway. So what they did with season 2 into 3 is they did what they should have done in the first place, which was not make it a fucking prequel. They should have made it in the far future. Spoiler alert. They go to the far future, like way the fuck out in the far future where things are barely recognizable and yet it's still Star Trek. That's what they should have done with Enterprise, but they certainly should have followed up Enterprise like that, you know? So it's still not perfect. Like there are definitely scenes and decisions and things like that I'm just like, but it's kind of like what I feel like with The Expanse, right? Sometimes I would have made a different decision. Doesn't make me hate the show. Not that I'm bringing that up again, but season 4, it expands on what the semi dumpster fire of season 3 was. And I think Now it's just kind of like a smoldering dumpster fire. So
it's not a bigger dumpster fire. They
yeah,
put a wet rag
it's
on
getting
it.
better. It's getting better. Like, so
Sometimes
season 3 like
better.
did jump them into the far future, but they weren't telling a story that I was very interested in ultimately. But it was at least Star Trek, right? They were at least trying to be more Star Trek and just kind of bring in old things. They like to make some references and whatnot, even though sometimes they were ham-fisted or whatever, in my opinion. But season 4 is very much more, oh, hey, we came up with a technological MacGuffin. Maybe we should use it to solve problems. And hey, we started some plot in season 3. Maybe we should continue that story. So they're making much better decisions, in my opinion. It's still not like, all there. It's still not super exciting, but I think they finally started to give up on some of the dumb that they started with season 1 and 2, and finally realized like maybe that's not actually working, and we're going to change things up a little bit. Because like one of the things, for example, like they were so dead set on the fact that the show shouldn't be an ensemble cast. It should be about this one character who coincidentally doesn't even hold a rank, doesn't belong on the bridge, and shouldn't be in charge of anything. Well, we've gotten way, way far away from that to the point where it's like, not only is that not really the thing, but now you've got several other strong characters to pull from that, just when she's not on screen doesn't mean that the story's not progressing or whatever, I
feel like they went away from that pretty early on before I even stopped. They lost me somewhere in season 2, I think. The hunt for Spock, kind of, and the angel.
Right. Season 2 is where they, I think, started to stop doing that, and the rest of the bridge crew started to become important, like they are in most of the other series. And I'm not saying like that's necessarily definitively Star Trek. I'm just saying what they were doing wasn't working, and now that they've backed off of that, I feel it's a lot better. It's like, imagine the story of The Expanse isn't about the Rocinante and that crew. It's about Holden, or it's about Clarissa, for shit's sake, where she's literally like, she's never on the bridge. You just follow her around in the cargo hold or whatever. That's an exaggeration, but like that's the first couple of episodes, in my opinion. Like after the pilot, because she's obviously important in the pilot, and then she gets literally busted like she's a traitor. She gets all her rank removed, all of everything, and it's like, that's how we're gonna start. Like, talk about painting yourself into a corner that you gotta dig uphill and all of this stuff. But yeah, and like the second half of season 1 was a lot better, right? So that's what I think helped make it survive. You've also got Jason Isaacs carrying the show quite a bit, in my opinion, in season 1. As much as I like, I can't remember her entire name, but as much as I like Burnham, the actress, and everything like that, her character wasn't especially great. And then season 2 was kind of like, there's a mystery, so now I've got to tune in every week so I can see how they resolve the mystery. And that's when I feel like they kind of like that became their pattern, because season 3 was like, season 3 was like, okay, now there's an even bigger pattern. So what they've done now since season 2, in my opinion, is they basically have some universe-ending threat that only Discovery can solve. Right. And it's very formulaic in that regard, but they have very strong like B plots along the way that kind of like keep you, engaged. So yeah. Anyway, it's not my favorite, but it's been pretty good. And right now it's on fucking hiatus until like 2 more weeks, I think, or 3 more weeks. So they did like a big mid-season break. So yeah, but yeah. Okay. Yep.
All right. So tune in next week when we continue arguing about book rankings.
I know, right? We can address all the backlash from all 2 of you guys who didn't like where we put White Knight, so.
I mean, EP will probably be there, so maybe it won't be as amicable, but last time was pretty amicable, but more amicable.
It's a surprisingly good job, I would have to say, yeah. But
luckily, we've only got 5 books left to go through, so maybe we can get that done in an hour with EG's help. So
5 books, 10 minutes per book, plus some fighting in the beginning of it.
Right. Yeah, see, what really happened, though, is with Ghost Story, it just made me completely lose all love I had for the characters. So it was just super shitty, and just cut the mic already. I'm just going to keep digging. So